Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Squad's Night In. I'm Kahil here. I am also here with Jaime and Josh. And this week, we are going to be talking about the best and worst places we've been to eat and dating in the modern world with the internet and everything that's, come into play. And this week, we're also starting something a little bit new, a little different, that we think is going to be interesting. And we are going to start having a useless fact of the week. And so this week, we're going to have Jaime give us a useless fact. And then next week and the week after, it'll cycle through each group member. So Jaime, why don't you take it away?
Hey guys, so your useless fact of the week is every time you lick a stamp, you consume 1/10 of a calorie.
Nice. Very interesting. Probably the best fact I've heard all week. And speaking of best, we are talking about the best and worst places we've been to eat. And to start off, we're going to have Josh.
Well, as I was telling them before we started this podcast, I really don't have a worst place I've ever eaten because I'm kind of a mellow person and I don't tend to get very mad at things. Like if I go to a restaurant and I necessarily don't like the food, I'm not like, I'll never go there again. I hate it. That's never happened to me before. So I have an interesting story, but I mean, take it as you must. It was a couple weeks, actually it was about a couple months ago. I ordered from Uber Eats a few times, and there was this one sports bar. I don't know if you guys have heard of it, but it was Ferg's. And I really like their wings. They had this really good honey garlic wings that were really good, and I tried to get them in boneless, and every time I ordered the boneless wings, they gave me the bone-in wings.
Oh man!
So I kept ordering these wings, expecting them to be boneless, and they were bone-in. So then one day, I switched up the flavoring because I thought maybe they just don't do the honey garlic in boneless, whatever.
Right.
So I switched it. One day I switched it to barbecue, and I just wanted the barbecue boneless wings, and they gave me, I think it was like teriyaki boneless.
Oh no!
So they just kept getting my order wrong, and I just couldn't catch a break. So I finally gave up, and I don't really order from there anymore because I'm tired of trying to fight them and get the wings.
So there you go. There's probably the worst place you've gotten, or the worst experience you've had getting food from somewhere. What about you, Jaime?
My worst experience, probably had to be, sometimes the worst things come out of the worst decisions and the worst parts that's going on. And so I was having probably a rough night, and I was like, I'm just going to get some food. I was hungry. I went to Checkers, and as soon as I pulled up, all I heard was, "What do you want?" I was just like, all right. I was like, let me get the, I ordered cheeseburger or something. I pulled up. She was making food, and then she looked at me, and I gave her my card, and she didn't have any gloves on, and she swiped it, did the, whatever, and she gave it back to me, and she kept making the food, someone else's order.
Oh my god!
And then she was making my order. And I was just kind of watching. I didn't want to be looking at her because I didn't want to. But I was kind of watching, and then she was just she coughed and she was sneezing.
Oh no!
And then she just went right back to making the food.
Oh man!
No gloves on. And then she gave it to me, and I took it. I wasn't gonna be nah, you can keep it.
But did you eat it?
Yeah, I paid for it. I was hungry.
It'd have been funny though. It would have been funny if you actually made the decision though to look at her and just kind of stare her down, and she looked over and you guys just had awkward eye contact for 10 seconds, and you just had that face what are you doing?
I mean, we both knew what was going down. I was there at 2 in the morning or something. I don't know. Man. It was late, and I was just there. I wasn't searching for quality. I was
just substance.
We
just
both
something.
knew what was happening.
Right. I don't really know what's the worst kind of experience I had. I mentioned earlier, I went to a vegan place, and it wasn't the best experience I had. But I think that was just because I wasn't a vegan.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm pretty basic. You know,
Yeah.
I get called basic all the time. So my favorite place to go is Chipotle.
Yeah.
So my worst experience out of Chipotle, I don't know, man. There's a couple locations I go to where, I mean, they need to go back to Chipotle school. That's what me and my coworker call it. They need to go back to Chipotle school. They need to do something. And you know, at one location the steak's always dry, and
Yeah.
I don't know why. Like, it's not like the steak is like really that juicy anyway.
Yeah.
But like, it can't be like excessively dry like that.
Yeah.
I mean, then you know, it's like biting into a burrito full of sand.
Yeah.
And then there's another location where like they don't give you hardly any steak, and you can barely taste the flavor. So I mean, it's like, it's a lose-lose for me, but that would probably be like the worst. I mean, I have gone to that Checkers
Yeah.
that you're talking about, and you know, the same situation.
Yeah.
But this time, it wasn't extremely late. I mean, I guess my mom and her friend just wanted food, and so
Yeah.
they went. And so my mom's friend, she's sitting in the front passenger seat. And I'm just kind of sitting in the back seat, just going about my business on my phone, whatever.
Yeah.
And my mom's friend is just so loud and so extra about it. She's like, "Oh my god, she doesn't have on gloves!" And like immediately, I'm just like sinking in, because like I get those experiences where like my mom,
Yeah.
she's pretty vocal about like if she doesn't like something. So like, also we went to Taco Bell one time, and she's like, "Hey, she's making food and she doesn't have on gloves," and like it's like. It's super embarrassing, but
Yeah.
I guess those would be like the worst experiences. I wouldn't say I've really had a bad, really bad experience at a sit-down restaurant. you
Yeah.
know? What about the best?
Well, the best, I have to say, Chick-fil-A. You know,
Chick-fil-A.
I know
Oh.
I'm being pretty basic.
No, wait. Can I
But-
just say, let's just stop the bar right there. Chick-fil-A
dog.
is automatically the best. Like, it doesn't get any better than
I'm
that.
telling
keep,
you, dog.
keep going, Josh.
It's just a step above, you know. Like, I go to Taco Bell and, I eat and I get my food. But I go to Chick-fil-A and I walk through those doors and like 8 people I don't even know just start to greet me.
Exactly. You
And
get an
it's-
experience.
it's an experience. I know that's like, it's the meme, but like, it's like when we went last time to Chick-fil-A. Like this, I think it was like the regional manager or something kept coming to our table. And she's like, "How are you? Did you need a refill?" And I'm just like, "Dog, like this is quality service right
Quality
here."
service.
The regional manager came down to this Chick-fil-A for me.
Right.
Not for anybody else. It was specifically for me.
Right.
And it's amazing.
Even though she asked all of us.
just with a little, it's the little things, that really help you realize how dedicated these people are to their jobs. And it's
I
not
agree.
like they hire different people from the other restaurants like McDonald's and Taco Bell. I'm sure there's the same, employee base.
Mhm.
It's just the fact that they have a higher standard. And I think that's really important, because even at a lot of the upper class health food stores like Trader Joe's and Rollin' Oats and things like that,
Mhm.
the employees still aren't to that level.
Yeah.
And I think it's just the atmosphere of Chick-fil-A. For whatever reason, they just built up this sort of atmosphere that, people enjoy being in.
It's kind of funny. I had a few friends that like work at Chick-fil-A, and I always ask them, because like personally, I feel like in this day and world, you can call me a pessimist or whatever, but I feel like there's just like no way that anybody could be that happy to like serve you like food or like take your order. And so I would always ask them, like, do they brainwash you? Like, what's going on? Like, these people are genuinely happy, and it's really awesome, and it really does show that the buck starts at the top. I mean, when it comes to standards, if you hold your employees to a high standard and you treat them well, I do think that's a part of it. Like, you have to be treated well, and you have to be treated like people want and need you. But if you have really high standards and you treat your employees well, I really think that like rubs off.
Yeah, it's amazing what it does, because I used to work at a food service place that shall not be named, and they wanted us to do a lot of the customer service and things like that, and being really nice, and and, you know, welcoming to the customers. And I did it to a certain extent, but I felt like there wasn't enough incentive. Like, they do little things here and there, but I mean, I could get away without doing much, and I think the environment at that store just didn't really allow for it. I feel like if you went above and beyond at that place, you were just like the weird guy who was happy all the time, you know? Like,
whereas like at Chick-fil-A, it's kind of like a culture where like all the employees are kind of like that way.
It's expected for you to be happy. But like at that place, I mean, if you're super overly happy, like people come in at, 7 in the morning, to get their coffee. I mean, they're not going to be, super engaged and things like that. They just want to get in and leave. So, I mean, half the people come up to me and I mean, they don't even talk,
Right.
I'll be like, good morning. And they'll just be like staring down at their phone, so... I mean, when I tell them that card declined, they start. It is what it is. What are you gonna do?
What about you, Jaime?
My favorite, places to eat, best places to eat, have to be like just authentic, Latino, Spanish restaurants. May not be the best service, and I honestly didn't like Spanish food that much growing up. But now I've really started to, and like, whether it's, any Cuban, Mexican, Costa Rican food, but if it's like authentic and really good, just tastes really good, and I look forward to it walking in. But Chick-fil-A is definitely like the best, like, kind of service.
Yeah, it's definitely quality.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes I get mad because the nuggets like the 8-count nuggets, like, they're not big enough to fill me up, but like the breading and just the chicken, it's so good. Like, that I kind of let it go. It's
kind of like at that point we kind of go like, I kind of appreciate the quality of the nuggets versus like the quantity or size of them.
Yeah.
And sometimes like I'll even get like the 12 count because I feel like the 8-count won't be enough, and like I'll get full on like the 8th nugget or something like that. It's those things.
Yeah.
That's wild, dog. Well.
Oh no.
Yeah, if you hear the birds, sorry about that. They're a little angsty tonight, and one's actually escaping the cage right now. So a little mission impossible.
Freaking out.
it landed on me, and that's what it'll be. If you hear me freaking out, just know that the bird has landed on me, and like I'm dying. Okay. So why don't we move on to the next topic? Dating in the modern world with the internet and how that's kind of played a role.
Simon has been waiting for this one.
I guess he has. Let's start off with the subtopic. How does one slide into the DMs? How does one approach a girl online or even in person?
I feel like in person it's almost easier just because whether you're like in class or you're working together, there's like an excuse to talk to each other. You're bonding over something, whether it's too much homework or just studying or at work and you really hate the manager, like you're gonna find some reason to talk. It's not gonna be awkward. You're both going there,
Right.
But online it's kind of weird because like if you're a guy, you're probably hitting up the girl because you think she's cute and maybe you're interested in what she does.
Right. And we were talking about that a little bit, where like the hard part is that online you are, whether you want to admit it or not, you are really just kind of
oh boy,
here
it comes.
Well,
they're extremely loud tonight.
You have to just hold one of them, Josh.
Yeah.
And we're back. Sorry we had to deal with the birds there. They were getting a little bit rowdy, but we were talking about dating in the modern world and online dating and the impact that it's had. And Jaime was starting off, saying things about online dating. And I was going on about, how when you are interested in online dating, when you're doing these apps that are specifically for online dating, what you're doing is off the jump, you are kind of judging this person based off their looks.
Yeah.
And while that is probably a good metric for some, I just don't think it's the best metric because there has to be substance there. There has to be something you have in common. There has to be something that like keeps you close. And I just don't think looks does it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, it's like when you're doing that, you kind of miss out on something that's real.
Right.
You kind of sacrifice a little bit of what's real, because you're just liking or disliking basically on your first impression of their looks, and if maybe if their bio is cool, maybe if they're what you think they do is cool, their job or whatever. But instead of in real life where you really get to like kind of know someone, and it's it's just more real that way.
Yeah, what do you think, Josh?
Well, it all goes down to the basic fact of what are you really after? I mean, I'm sure for some people, online sites such as Tinder and Kick, things like that, I'm sure that's more than enough for some people. But I mean, I think there are some other dating apps that are a little bit more fleshed out, but then again, it's not by much. They generally have more substance in the bio and things like that, and they're generally more formal. So things like eHarmony, for example, I think that's one of probably one of the most formal dating websites out there.
Right.
Because I think Tinder is mainly just for hookups,
like a
mostly.
fling kind of thing.
Yeah, it's just kind of like a one and done kind of thing. I don't think most people take Tinder relationships very seriously.
Right.
But I mean, if you're really looking for a relationship and you're 30 years old, you're alone, you want a relationship, I'm sure you wouldn't go to Tinder for that.
Tinder's not the place for you.
Yeah, you'd probably go to things like eHarmony and stuff like that. They're actually respectable. Respectable.
Right.
It's not just swipe left, swipe right.
Right.
It's actually, respectable dating websites that'll probably get you some decent results.
So would you say like Tinder and stuff is kind of made more for like the younger audience?
Yeah, I think it's mostly just for high school, college kids who just want to hook up, and there's those odd people who use Tinder to make friends.
To make friends.
Yeah. Just here to make friends.
I don't think that's the point of the site, but
Right.
to each their own.
Bumble. There's the app Bumble, which is that women have to message the men. Like the men can't message the women.
Ah.
So that kind of
I gotta check that out.
What?
I mean, that's how you know they're really interested in you.
If
When they actually
you
go
first.
out of their way to message you.
Yeah.
Because you can message people all day and they just won't reply.
Right.
But I mean,
right. And I also think that there's this sort of stigma, or this kind of thing in society where, the men have to message the girls first. Like that's just kind of like a societal standard. But should it really be that way?
yeah. I mean, it's
tough.
you just can't win. When you message first, and it's not good enough up to their standards, they don't reply.
So
if you don't message, they don't reply.
So that begs the question. I mean, what is the way to kind of message them? What is the way to go about, quote unquote, sliding into the DMs?
I don't know. There's so many ways you can slide in DMs.
Let me see if I may put it on
And 1 second.
And so what is the quote unquote best way to slide into a girl's DMs?
Well, it's kind of difficult because it's really a science almost.
Right.
You can't just say hey, because any girl will tell you that if someone just says hey, they're probably just not even going to care or look, or they're just instantly they think, oh, this guy is weird.
Right.
But if you say say hey with an emoji smiley face, like that's
right. That's a slippery slope.
That's it's like Cahill was saying maybe we were talking about this earlier. Cahill was saying maybe throwing a funny joke, but then sometimes I hear girls saying, oh, that's just corny, and they really don't like that.
Right.
So it's like at this point, like you're going through all this trouble, like
right.
Like, do you even do it? Like,
is it even worth?
Is it even
doing?
worth all this trouble? She might even put you on blast.
Right.
These days now, girls will screenshot.
Screenshot. Oh yeah, you got to watch out for the dreaded screenshot.
Throw you up on her feet.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
And now every one of your friends knows that you're out here hopping into DMs.
Right. So, we were also talking a little bit earlier about when you when you talk to somebody that you have to interact with almost every day or every other day, where you go to the same school and you work at the same place, or you just somehow you see each other more oftentimes throughout the week, is that easier?
I have to say, yeah, because you do develop a relationship with them, and I think maybe you might not like each other, but at the same time you can still be friends, I guess.
And so that also begs the question: is it more difficult to face rejection at that point? Because we were also talking about how when you're dating or when you're on the online apps where you're into dating and stuff, it to me it kind of seems like, because I don't really have an account on an online dating or a dating app, but it seems like the rejection would be like easier to take if it were online with somebody you barely know and you just kind of swiped right, versus like
someone you have to see
every day or someone you have to see every other day, where you go to the same class or you work at the same job. So like, does that make the rejection that much harder?
Oh yeah. I mean, like, I've had a Tinder for like 4 or 5 months. Josh, we've had maybe a Tinder.
Dog, I've had Tinder for like a couple of years. Dog.
And I've gotten like 6 matches,
right.
And one of them was the Tinder company itself.
Oh god!
And so I know that hundreds of girls have left swiped me,
right? And
I'm not fazed,
right?
But if I went up to 100 girls and they all rejected me, I would just be in bed, like right. I would just be laying
bedridden.
I would just be like, man, I really asked 100 girls to go out with me, and they all said no. Right. Like,
that'd be a little bit weird. They probably all said no because you've asked 100 girls.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But by that point, I mean, you must have you have mastered the art of asking a girl out.
Yeah, but then at the same time, something in you just dies.
Right.
That something in you, after getting rejected 100 times, like, you turn into something else.
Yeah, and we were also talking about that. I mean, there's guys out there where like rejection just doesn't faze them. Like, what does it take to get to that point? You know what I mean? Not that either of us or any of us want to get to that point, but like, what does it take to get to that point? Is it like a bunch of rejections to where like you just don't even care anymore, or like are you just born that way? Yeah. Maybe she's born this way. Maybe it's Maybelline. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I think you just have to have a certain type of, like, you just have to have like an outgoing personality, because I guess when you're trying to, how do I say it? When you're trying to deal with this fear of rejection in real life, it's a lot tougher, especially if you're very like secluded kind of person, and that if they reject you, or if they say things like I have a boyfriend and stuff like that, how do you live with that, knowing that you have to see them the next day, or
right? It just becomes awkward. You know what I mean?
So
like,
that's what I'm saying. It's a lot more difficult in real life, and especially even on the girls side too, because of the fact they have to constantly. Cause it's not just a relationship that you can just cut off and it's done. You have to constantly interact with this person again and again. So I think there's a lot more thought put into whether or not you want to end this on bad terms or not. Because on things like Tinder, you mess up and like girls will just roast you for like 3 days straight. But in real life, if that happened to you, I don't think they'd be as harsh, because of the fact that they still have to think about that relationship, even if it's in like the smallest degree. They might soften the blow a little bit.
And I mean, we were also talking a little bit earlier about how I've seen online where girls always, or not always, but oftentimes they post I married my best friend, or this has been the best thing that's happened to me because I fell in love with my best friend and all these things. But like, for me, I feel like that it's kind of like a double-edged sword, or it's like you can have one extreme or the other. I don't think there's any in between. It's like you can fall in love with your best friend and you date, and it could be perfect, because I think at that point what makes each other tick. That you have things in common. You genuinely like that person for who they are, and you're really, really good friends. But on the opposite end, if they are not interested and they are interested in this as someone else, having to be like, hey, I don't like you in that way. We're just really close friends. That's the way I want to keep. Like, that could completely ruin a friendship just based on how someone takes it. And it doesn't even have to be the girl saying that. It could be the guy saying, I'm not really interested in that way. It doesn't usually work out that way, but it goes both ways.
Mm-hmm.
But I just think when that happens, you have one end of the spectrum or you have the other. There's no real in between. You kind of like ruin that friendship. So when you find yourself in that situation, what do you even do?
It's a lot of pressure. It's one way you're screwed, the other way you're screwed. And there's like this small inch of hope at the end where everyone ends up happy and everyone's all fine and dandy. But 99% of the time doesn't work out like that, and you just end up in a place where everything's awkward for several months. And you don't want to talk to that person.
Right.
You don't want to see that person.
Hear everything from their friends.
Yeah, and it's just, what do? Do you take that step and I guess just face it that it's probably going to happen? Or do you just
keep those feelings hidden forever?
It's
kind of like a leap of faith kind of thing.
Yeah, it's like, do you ruin something good you have now because you want something more? Or do you just keep it the same? And I mean... It honestly depends on the person. Like, some people say, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. But is it really worth making some of those shots?
I say to those people, you can't miss a shot that you don't take. You have to take a shot to miss it.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, I think it is an opportunity lost, especially if you really, really like the person.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think it's necessarily a missed shot. You know what I mean?
Well, there's a couple girls, who things could have worked out. Like, I could have asked her and she probably would have said yes. But in my head, I'm like, man, she's a really good friend.
Yeah.
I'm just like,
I think that's happened to all of us.
I'm like,
where
am I really mature enough to not wreck this relationship?
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of young, out of all my friends, only really one of them who's now married now,
Right.
But like, am I, or am I just going to ruin a good friendship? And,
right.
And I'm like, you know what? Right now, I think
it's not worth it.
It's not, I'm just going to, friendship, I'm okay with that.
Right. and I think it's, it's nice to have a friendship than like to have sort of this like awkward relationship going forward. And I think that's what you kind of become afraid of. And I think, like I was saying, I think we all go through that at some point. Whether they are super close friends or they're just a friend in general, it's better to kind of like have that friend than to not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's the kind of question you have to ask yourself. But when you ask yourself that question, you kind of you back yourself into a corner because the only logical answer is that you want to keep the friendship. You know what I mean? You're not willing to take that leap of faith.
It's almost like what do you value more?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm sure it drives a lot of people just insane. When they finally make that decision, and there's nothing you can do at that point. Even if it's the fact that you chose to not do anything, sometimes it'll just tear people apart. That they're now forever stuck in this realm that they have no, I guess, intimacy in this relationship that they really wanted. And,
right.
Because you it's not just like, you really fall for this person, you really care about them, and then you see them maybe with another person.
Man.
You're just like, man, like, that kind of hurts.
Yeah, I agree.
I really like this person. I really wanted to, be there with them, and
right.
That's not gonna happen.
Right. But I think the friend in you kind of just goes back. I think after a while you just kind of think, I want what's best for them. I want them to be happy in the long run, and I think that's what a true friend is.
Yeah. Yeah. Even though you'll be hurting for a while, right?
Right.
You'll be listening to the Drake and the sad playlist.
Right. Time heals all wounds.
Time
with enough time,
helps
I think
you forget.
Yes, I think with enough time, you will be okay, and you will find that there are other fish in the sea. maybe not as perfect as that fish, but
Yeah.
when you start judging other people based on one person, you've already kind of screwed yourself in the process.
Well,
That's all we got.
Yeah.
very, very eventful
We don't have any
week. It's
I guess no advice. I was just talking about
Yeah.
the downsides, huh?
Right.
this is a very
Ending on a
depressing.
depressing
And unfortunately, that was kind of depressing.
Just
But
real
I
life.
guess if we were gonna say anything on that, advice-wise, it would be like, if you want to take your shot, just go for it.
Yeah, just
If
take
not,
it.
that's completely valid. That's okay. If you value the friendship, that's totally okay.
There's I don't know how many of our viewers watch The Office, but there's an episode where the main character has a box full of stuff that if the person says yes, in that box they go and has like a cake celebration, and then there's a box that says no, and there's like a bunch of like tissues and stuff.
Right.
So I guess you gotta prepare yourself.
Yeah,
if you're
just-
gonna take that big leap.
Yeah, just be prepared for the worst and kind of don't go in with any big expectations so that you won't be let down in the end.
Too
All right.
much.
All right, guys. So, any last words before I sign us off?
Well, if you'd like us to talk about any topics or have any topics to bring up, you can always drop that down in the comments. We read them, and we really appreciate you guys. We're doing this for you, and we love all our viewers everywhere.
Exactly. And so don't forget to comment those topics that you want us to talk about. Truly, we would value some input from you guys listening to the podcast, and subscribe, and also hit the notification so that you can see every time we drop the video, drop the podcast. And it happens every week, usually on Fridays, but sometimes we get a little bit behind, and it comes out on Saturdays. But fear not, we do post the podcast every week. And till next time.
All right.
Bye.